Can you hear me now, Jan? Okay. Kathy, I'm on Facebook. Is that what that means? I saw a yes, you are. I wish I had very long arms for when I need to be able to scroll these comments over on Instagram. Okay. Is the sound back? Edith, can you hear me? It says that there is sound now. Okay, brilliant. Okay. Rock stars, welcome back to our Aldebaran quilt along. My name is Holly, a Knight of String and Story, and it's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. And I think we have solved our technical issues for the day. I have already worked up a sweat, so this is just going to come right off. What I was saying is that I am live on Facebook and YouTube, and then I'm live over on Instagram. On Instagram, you can see a little more of the cutting table. On Facebook and YouTube, you obviously can just like see more. So pick your watching location based on what you want to see. And also if like one location you want to watch now, but when you're watching again later as you cut, if it would be helpful, then you can always go watch another location. Okay, what we're doing today is we are cutting. And I did not grab my template. This is what happens when I run around. It's okay, they're right here. No panic, including me. We are going to be cutting today using the tri-ruler. It's a big triangle. You can kind of sort of see it, okay? Tri-ruler. That's part of a tri-rex set. We only need the tri, but we're going to use it to cut out our quilt. Jan says, on the quilt behind you, you just add an extra row to the bottom and sides to make it larger. This should be, yes. So Jan, I'll give you like the full disclosure. So Jan's asking about this Aldebaran behind me because it is bigger than the throw size that's in the pattern, but smaller than the twin size that is in the pattern. So Jan, this is from the original iteration of the pattern, and we eliminated this size this time around because the math didn't math very well with it. So yes, if you want to make this in-betweeny size, you're going to cut somewhere in between the number that you need for the throw and for the twin. Today, we are going to be cutting the throw size out together. This is going to be 36 by 55. It's a relatively small throw. Let's just go ahead and like own that as Jan is observing, right? It's a relatively small throw. You could always add to it, especially since this is a fat quarter friendly quilt. It's easy to just grab a few more fat quarters and do that. Speaking of, I'm going to grab the bundle that I'm using as I bump into things. And then I'm also going to show y'all. Look at that. That was a fun trick. I'm going to show you all the bundle that I'm using, and then I'm going to show you all a few other bundles as well. So this is First Thaw. This is a very similar quilt, like a very similar palette to what's going on with this quilt here behind me. It's just in solids. It doesn't have an orange. It has these kind of pinks. So if you wanted to do this quilt, I would add a couple of fat quarters of orange just for the stripes, right? So like dig in your stash for that. But this is First Thaw. We still have a couple of these available. Don't forget we're having a sale this week. I should have said that right at the top. Monday was my 34th birthday. Sunday is the New York City Marathon, and I'm running it. I am beyond excited. Don't get me talking about running. We will be here forever. So we're having a sale this week, 20% off all orders over $34 because it was my 34th birthday. Okay. So if you have not yet grabbed a bundle or a kit, this is your sign, right? Or you can do what Nicole's doing. And Nicole is like, I'm cutting from my scraps until I run out. I think that's brilliant. A few other bundles. These are 16 fat quarter bundles. So Jan, if you wanted to make this size, these bundles should be about the right size, because it's a little bit more than you need for the throw, but 2 of them will make the twin, okay? So this is Botanical Garden. I'm obsessed with this one. This is one that we just added like a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's gorgeous. This is For Good. Don't forget that we have a new Wicked movie coming out. I could not resist a little homage to Cynthia Erivo there. This is Red Maple. Our leaves are just starting to get to peak here in Georgia. We went to Chattanooga this weekend for my birthday, and it was still not quite peak there. This is Crocuses, because those are the first pretty little things to pop out of the ground in the new year. This is another new one. This is Burger Night. So there's some French fries and burgers kind of sprinkled into this really fun, bright rainbow of fabrics. And then finally, we have Deck the Halls. If you want some nice jewel tone holiday winter vibes, this is the one for you. Okay. All right. There's my quick review of lovely kits, and we are going to dive into cutting. I have taken all of my fat quarters, and by I mean Mercy, because Mercy did this while I was in Lebanon earlier this month. She took my fat quarters and she pressed and starched them so they are ready to rock and roll. Oh, and I did have a try in here. Look at me. Pastel Leanne was prepared. I love that for her and for me. And we're going to go through these. I'm going to cut one at a time to get us started, and then we will cut a few at a time, right? So let's see. Thank you for all the happy birthdays. Y'all are delightful, which I know I mentioned my birthday. I also mentioned the marathon. Those of you who contributed to my New York City run. So if you don't know, I'm running New York City on Sunday with Team Breakthrough T1D because John and Jim are type 1 diabetics. I ran with them for Chicago last year. I almost didn't do it this year. And John looked at me and he was like, that was actually super meaningful. Would you please fundraise again? And it was so exciting to me that this like thing we had done together meant so much to him. It's just a way to show support for the chronic disease that he lives with every day, and that our son lives with, but also like doing it in a way that supports research. Breakthrough T1D is the largest non-government organization in the world for type 1 diabetes research. And those of you who have given, and yes, Jan, you can still donate. We have raised over $10.6 thousand together, like in the last couple of months. So thank you. That is a huge deal for type 1 diabetes research. And I'm so excited. Hence why we're having a sale. It's my small little thank you for all of you. Okay. I'm going to get emotional, so we're going to move along. We are going to take our fat quarters and we are cutting. This is very important. We are cutting our strips down the length of the fat quarter. Okay, so your selvage is going to be on the 18-inch side. Because remember, fat quarters are made by rolling out a half yard. That's 18 inches. We cut that half yard and then we split it at the fold up at the top. Okay, so that means that you know which side is 18 inches because it's the one that has a selvage. Okay, this is 21 inches. You're longer, give or take, right? It's a split fat quarter. So depending on how wide the fabric was to start with, it might be 20 and a half. It might be 22. This one is 22 minus the selvage, 21 3/4, right? So we're going to cut along that long side, and you're going to cut your strips as your width of those strips and everything is outlined in the pattern. But go ahead and cut your strips, and you need to cut. Oh, hold on. I need to back up a step. I need to divide mine into colors because that's going to tell me how many I need to do. All right, let's sort these real quick. Boop, 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 boop. Let's see. 1, 2, that's 4. I need 4 colors, and I know there were 16 fat quarters in this bundle. So I'm going to split these into 4 groups. So I'm putting my pinks and greens together. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put these like lilacs and blues together. I'm going to put these mauvey purples together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to have my neutrals, my browns and grays. Okay. So for purposes of this, my browns and grays are now color 1. And I am going to cut. This is a total of 6 strips. I'm going to do 2 strips from each color. Okay. Keep in mind, because I'm doing this with extra fat quarters, that's why I'm hacking this a little bit. If you have the exact correct number of fat quarters, if you had 12 fat quarters, you would do 2 from each fat quarter and you would not have any extra. I'm going to have a little bit of extra. Okay. Measure twice, cut once. And I'm going to start by just doing this with my regular ruler. When I go do this several at a time in a minute, then I'll use my stripology. Now, I have my 2 strips and I have this leftover piece. Keep this, okay? The way that we have written this, you're going to take this in a minute and you're going to make these strips with it. Okay. We try to keep this as low waist as possible. Okay. So that's part of why I'm like, if I'm going to be cutting into all of these, my quilts might actually end up being a little bit bigger because I'm going to make use of what I have. I don't need a bunch of stuff left over. Okay. All right. Once we have cut that, okay, and I'm following, if you look in the pattern, there's a section that says cut strips from fat quarters, and there's a section that says cut strips from yardage, okay? Follow your fat quarter directions as we go through. Then we are going to cut our triangles, and we're going to cut using these strips or just using the height of the strip. That's a loud train. I don't know if y'all can hear that train, but it was a loud one. I'm going to line these up on top of each other. Here's the thing. Whether you are using fat quarters or you're using yardage, notice, and I know this is hard for y'all to see. There we go. You can kind of see it now on the YouTube. Open these strips up. Do not fold them in half to cut them. If you are working with yardage and you've cut on the width of fabric, open that strip all the way up to cut it. Okay, because what happens with the way this try is, as we cartwheel it down here, you will lose the ability to make a triangle on that fold. So open it all the way up, and it'll actually, it takes an extra second, but it's going to be more efficient cutting in the long run. And just stack several of them on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to put my triangle here. When we do this, these edges along the triangle, so the sides of the triangle, okay, these are going to become bias edges. What that means, if you are a new quilter, okay, is that when fabric is woven, we've got the warp and weft, right? And it might, I don't remember which is the warp and which is the weft. That's not the important part. They cross and they're supposed to be perpendicular to one another, right? This is the weave of the fabric, all right? And there's a very limited amount of stretch on your fabric because those fibers are in a straight line all lined up together. However, if you cut on the diagonal, this diagonal edge becomes very, very stretchy because that's where that grid begins to break down. Okay. So what that means is you want to be careful as you cut these. That's part of why we starch these fabrics ahead of time. That's going to help stabilize them a little bit. And when I cut, I want to make nice smooth cuts. And then I'm going to pick them up from the bottom where it's not a bias edge and set them off to the side. Right. And I don't need to be like, super, super, super like it's gonna break and the world is gonna end. We don't need to act like that. You just need to be mindful. Just pay attention to the fact that you are cutting a bias edge, okay? Because if you end up getting that all stretched out of shape, then when we go to put these together, your hexagons won't be uniform and it's gonna mess you up later, all right? And this is actually remarkably straightforward. I know some of y'all are nervous about the Y seams, but like you don't need to be. Okay, listen, I was at Missouri Star last week working on some like still kind of super secret stuff with Misty Doan. Misty Doan taught me how to sew curves on live video. Okay, and she coached me through and I got it right on the first try. If that can happen, you can get this right with the bias edges and the Y seams. Okay, I saw a quick tip from Dot over on Instagram. She says, use a fresh blade. Yes, highly recommend. Okay, so you've got your triangle down. This is where if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if this part is confusing to you, go catch it on Instagram because it's easier to see this. Mine is not a fresh blade, and boy, did I just feel that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this. Okay, it did cut all the way through. Thank goodness. There we go. Oop, not right there. Okay, then I move my template, and I'm going to pick it up from the bottom like that and set it over here. Okay. I need a total of 29. 29 divided by 4. 8 would be 32. We'll cut 8 from each color. That'll work. We're going to end up with some extras. It'll be fine. Now, let me show you this bias edge. So this is now a piece of waste fabric, right? So this is also a bias edge. So notice if I tug here, right, we're not getting a whole lot of movement. This is not very stretchy. This is not stretchy, right? Over here. Also, even less stretchy, right? That you can almost hear it. Now, if I come over here and I start tugging, look at that. You see how that warps and distorts, and you can actually see the little rippling ridges. Here, let me get it against the light background. You can actually see those little rippling ridges where I pulled that apart, and you can see the waviness in it now. Like that's no longer a straight edge. It's distorted right along here. And obviously I pulled on this very, very hard, right? But you just want to keep that in mind. Like when we think to ourselves, I'm never going to tug on that so hard. But if you're someone who tends to drag and tug your fabric as you feed it through your machine, this can happen to your pieces, right? So just be mindful, pay attention, be gentle with it. You'll thank yourself later, okay? All right, I said 8, so that was 2, 4. Notice I'm just cartwheeling this little template down. 6, 8. Now, if you are working with the exact same number of fat quarters that the pattern recommends, you're going to follow the exact number that's written in the pattern. I'm riffing a little bit, and I'm actually, let me think. 9 would actually be a better number. So we're going to, because I'm cutting them 2 at a time, it's going to end up being 10. I will not end up using all of these, but we're going to cut them. And then I'm going to put them in a nice, tidy little stack off to the side. Okay. And I'm going to grab the rest of my color one. Remember how I said I was going to start using my Stripology? We're going to do that now. Okay. So I'm going to fold these in half because that 21 inches is a little long for my ruler. I'm going to make sure these are lined up on a nice line on the mat so everything's nice and square. And then we're going to repeat this, okay? Jan says, I sewed mine straight across, but I'm going to try Y seams on the next one. Jan got excited and just like dove into the deep end and has like already pieced a quilt, which is awesome. That's something that I love about these quilt-alongs actually is like you can totally go at exactly the pace I'm prescribing. And also if you're like, wee, this is great, you can dive off and do it at your pace. And both are totally fine. Because the bigger point of this is to make sure that if there are techniques that you're uncertain of, or if you just need a little extra quilting community in your life, that we have that available for you. Because there are lots of things that are just a little more fun with friends, right? All right. Any questions thus far? We are moving and grooving along. This is an enormous part of what we're doing today. Oh, no, we're going to go with this line. So I'm lining up the bottom line of my Stripology with the bottom of my fabric. I've got a little bit of overlap so I can trim it 0 to make this super square. And I'm going to move my blue tapes so I know where to cut. And I'm just going to say it out loud because you are going to turn this into your strips later. Technically, if you're using a Stripology, you could go ahead and do those cuts if you wanted to look ahead in the pattern and see the widths we're going to use for them. My only recommendation if you choose to do that is, one, I would recommend that you're using a Stripology because then you can take tape and you could put little markers down of where to keep cutting so that you don't have to fiddle with this fabric again later. But if you are doing it with a regular ruler, just wait and cut that in a second. It's not worth accidentally confusing yourself and having to like toss out a whole fat quarter. Okay. Oh, I didn't do my 0. Let's do the 0. There we go. So that squares it off. And then I've made my first cut. And now I'll make my second cut. Lift this straight up. And assuming my blade cooperated, beautiful. We now have all of these. It's so good to see y'all. Thanks for tuning in. All right, we're going to lay these out exactly like we did that first brown. And we're going to cartwheel our little template down the way. So I'm just going to stack all these up. Stacking them this high, we technically might lose a thread or 2 of accuracy. I'm not that concerned about it, right? This is really forgiving. These are big triangles. We're making big blocks. Y'all know I love a forgiving piecing moment, right? And this is one of those that if this ends up ever so slightly off because we're choosing to cut, you know, our fat quarters all at once, it is going to be a-okay. All right. All right, as I'm doing this, drop in the chat for me. If you got a bundle from us, which one did you choose? And if you picked from your stash, what are your colors or like what is your theme? Like, for example, I know that Jan did an adorably chaotic dog themed Aldebaran and it looks fabulous. So what are the rest of y'all doing for your choices? And have you posted a picture yet? So I'm going to ask you here, but then when we're done, I want you to go post a picture because I want to see. All right, 6 layers of fabric. That ought to be plenty, right? Line this up. Cut away from yourself. And then when you cut the other side of this triangle, step your body to the side, right? Don't stand here and come towards yourself. You're going to get hurt. Okay, step your body to the side so that that trajectory is not in alignment with any part of you. This blade is not serving me. We're going to get a fresher blade. This is a fresher blade. Much better. Okay. Now, for the purposes of cutting this, I have assigned these colors 1, 2, 3, and 4. If for some reason that's making you super nervous, just remember that you can totally rearrange all of your blocks and colors later. Okay. Like, I'm not entirely sure that I will keep these same groupings as we continue on and as I arrange the quilt. But for now, this makes sure that I cut enough triangles and we'll have what I need to make this quilt a reality. Okay. All right, let's see. I do not think it's a hot mess, Jan. I liked your dog quilt. I thought it was pretty great. Susan Ruff said, I chose First Thought. I'm going to make the twin size. I love it. I'm really excited about the First Thought colors. I think they're really pretty. Edith says, I have prints similar to the color of the one behind you, which I love. Nicole says, I have scrappy blues. I'll post later when sewn. Go to Beach Girl says, I've stumbled across your live and I've already learned something. Yay! Oh my gosh. I love that. Oh, yes. Move your body to the side. That's one of my like biggest, because we can't turn everything all the time, as you know. And there are times when our cutting has it, you know, especially on an angle like this, it's coming back towards us for some reason. We're cutting with a template, etc. But the simple safety hack there is just move your body over. Just stay out of your own way and it'll make it so much easier. And is it super ergonomic to do it this way? Like, I'm all twisted. No, it's not super ergonomic. But like, sometimes life isn't. And I know some of y'all just like gasped and stepped back because y'all know I love to talk about ergonomics. I love to talk about body alignment. Listen, my primary sport right now is running. Like, I move forward in a straight line. However, life is not always ergonomic, right? And this is one of those instances where we're going to make sure we're being safe. And as long as we're not spending hours and hours doing this, there's not going to be any major issues from it, right? Also, welcome, Go to Beach Girl. You're a rock star. We're thrilled you're here. And if you're having fun, feel free to join us for this Aldebaran quilt along because we'd love to have you. I'm so excited about your scrappy blues, Nicole. That is so great. Okay, so I have all of these cut, right? This is now my color 1. I know this is not, Jan says welcome, by the way. This is not super inspiring because it's on my neutrals, but remember, we've talked about contrast and we've talked about the fact that this is a very forgiving quilt when it comes to contrast. Like, you could do, like I did here, something that's pretty low contrast, where I am usually a huge proponent of high contrast situations. But in this is going to give me some really spicy contrast as I put this together, and it's going to make some of these corals and lavenders pop. And I'm so excited about that. All right, so we have gone through pages 2 and 3 cutting our triangles. I have cut 4 of my 16 fat quarters. Remember, I'm making kind of an in-betweeny size. So The throw size needs 12 fat quarters. The twin size needs 32. Yes, total fat quarters. Or you can use yardage. I'm doing something kind of in the middle. I've grabbed a 16 bundle and I'm doing that. I'm going to now jump over. Page 4 is our blocks and our setting triangles. Oh, I'm not jumping over, I lied. I'm going to the bottom of page 3 where it says strings. Cut the remaining pieces of fabric into strips. And I give a couple of suggested widths there. We're going to do that now, okay? So I'm going to take these. You could choose to make these all super skinny, right? You could cut freaking 1/2-inch strips if you want and have all of these finish at 1/4 of an inch. You could cut them all 1 inch and have them finish at 1/2 an inch, right? It's totally up to you. That's why I just made some suggestions in the pattern. Excuse me. I'm going to cut a couple of widths, and I might even go so far as to cut, because these are very dark, I might cut these a little narrower. And then when I get to some of my brighter colors, cut them a little wider, right? You can play around color to color to get a different effect. Not everything has to be super uniform with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these now. I'm glad that blade was closed. That's why we always close our blade, because I just bumped my hand up against it. And that could have been a whole thing. I got to scoot these closer together. They're too tall. And again, I'm going to cut all 4 at once, because this, if it's a little distorted, it's not going to be a problem. Okay. Look at me, y'all. I'm out here breaking rules with my tips today. It's okay. Sometimes we need to know the rules. We need to build really good habits, and then we need to know where the exceptions to those rules fall, right? All right. Nicole says, I can't wait to see all the great colors. Same. Susan Ruff says, my friend Holly from Toledo is running New York as well. I love that. For mental health awareness. Yes. Susan, incredible. I love it. All right, let's see. I have 4.5 inches here. I'm going to cut a 1.5-inch strip. I'm making this up as I go along. That's okay. All right. So I'm going to cut a 1.5-inch strip. I'm actually going to pull that out so I can see what I have left after that. And then 1.5, 2, what does that leave me? I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip. That did not feel like it cut all the way through. There we go. And then what's left is about 1.5 inches, except for this gray that came in a little skinny, and it's closer to 1, okay? So I've got some skinnier strips, and I've got some slightly wider strips. And I may do even wider strips later with some of my brighter colors. I want to just be very mindful that these darks could get overwhelming really quickly. And I want them to add a little sparkle here, but not get too gnarly, okay? So what we have done is we have started by taking our fat quarters and we've cut our strips. We've then turned those strips and used our try tool, which, shameless plug, this is the same ruler set that makes my pattern Dogwood Blossoms, and the same ruler set that we use in Star Island. So if you've got this ruler set, you might as well get those 2 patterns while they're on sale, because then you can get more use out of it. And we love a tool that does more than one job. Okay, so then we've taken this template and we have cartwheeled it down and cut our triangles. I have these numbers and everything spelled out in beautiful tables for you inside the pattern. And we've taken the leftover pieces from our fat quarter after we cut our strips, and we've cut these skinny little strings, we're going to call them. Okay, and these strings are what's going to make these pieced triangles. I've done a quarter of mine. I've done color 1. I'm going to repeat this same process for colors 2, 3, and 4. It looks exactly the same. Okay. Any questions I can answer about that? That's what you need to do this week, is do all your cutting. Jan asked if we've got a Q&A for Quilting Rockstar University today. Yes, I will be live there at 11. Great question. I'm excited to be back with y'all after a week off of running around and doing other things. Brilliant. All right. I'm going to take a sip of water and a sip of smoothie because I know it takes time to type. Because I don't want to miss any questions. Sometimes I say, okay, y'all are good. And I log off and then I see a comment pop up. I said water and smoothie. What a lie. That was coffee and smoothie. Sherry says, thanks for the call to Long Holly and using colors I was saving for dogwood blossoms, but that's okay. I can always buy more. Sherry, that's going to be awesome. That's what I love about, fat quarter friendly quilts is that you can swap those fabrics in and out, that you've got something you've been looking forward to using, but a different quilt comes along. It still works. All right. Y'all are fabulous. Go enjoy your quilting. Be safe and keep your fingers out of the way as you cut these triangles. It always makes me a little nervous because it's not super wide, but you've got this. You have great rotary cutter habits. Hopefully you understand all the steps. And next week, we're going to start putting some things together, which is really, really exciting. Okay. Bye for now, y'all.